Hi, my name is John Sandbach, and I want to tell you a little bit about a novel I wrote. The title of the novel is Azoth. I first wrote this as a short story, and it was contained in a book called Histories of Ab, which was a book of 40 short stories. And it is the longest short story in that book. And what I was trying to do when I wrote the short story, I was trying to write something that would be the scope of a whole novel, but that would be very much encapsulated, that would all be told very quickly. The original short story is only about 4,000 words in length. And so that when you read it, it kind of passes by very quickly. I thought for a long time about turning this into a novel, and finally I began doing it. By the way, this is my friend Sandra here. And she has helped me so much with my writing, given me invaluable encouragement over the years. And so I took the 4,000 word short story and I expanded it into a 16,000 word novella and gave it to Sandra to read. And what did you think?
This is a magical and fascinating world. It's hard to explain, but it seems very familiar, something like we all know and have been there. I think we talked before about William Blake referring to it as Beulah, this in-between world. It's very much like that, full of wisdom. And it's always something that I was always excited to go back to, because it was like breathing a sigh of relief to be back in that world. I really love it.
Well, thank you very much. You know, after I expanded it to 16,000 words and gave it to her to read, I said to her, well, could this be longer? And she said, oh yes. She said it could be much longer. So I took it and rewrote it as a 40,000 word novel. Went from 16,000 to 40,000 words, and I gave it to her again to read. You're a real trooper that you could keep reading this over and over. And she
all seemed new and fresh each and every time, too.
That's great. Mm-hmm. She liked the 40,000 word version, and I said, could it be even longer? And she said, yeah, oh, definitely. So I took the 40,000 word version, and I wrote it as a novel of 125,000 words. In other words, I about tripled it in length, adding quite a bit of side plot to it. And that was the completed novel. And at the time I finished it, I didn't really have any ideas about writing a second book, but then a storyline started coming to me, and so what I did was I began a sequel to Azoth. Actually, the sequel is part 2 of the same novel. So I really think of the whole thing as one novel. Part 2 is called Zahira, and it's 170,000 words in length. So that the whole book is approximately 300,000 words long. It's pretty big in scope. And there's many ways of telling you what the story is like. One thing I would say about it, it's a retelling in a way of the story of Frankenstein, because it's about a man who creates another human being. And there's many references in the book to alchemy. This man that creates this being is an alchemist. And to create this being, it's like a writer needing a white, clean piece of paper on which to do his creation. This alchemist goes to a land that is completely devoid of life. It is like Antarctica. It is completely white, snowy, with cliffs of ice and a gigantic volcanic mountain there on the island. And he and his apprentice, what they do is over time, through rituals, they warm the island, they invite the sun in, they begin planting seeds, they grow trees, they eventually build a very huge laboratory, and this is all for the creation of this human being. And so that is volume 1 of Azoth. And the human being is created. It is a female. I won't tell you much more of the story of that because I don't want to put any spoilers in this for you. In volume 2, this homunculus, this human being, is reborn as another person, and she doesn't know who she originally was. And volume 2 is about her being haunted by who she was in volume 1, and it's about her finally coming together as a whole, the two sides of herself integrating. And tell me some more about what you think of the book.
Well, it's this magical land which goes back, to your original work from so long ago, The Histories of Ob, which is replete with maps and places that we've become very familiar with and want to go back to, and it's just filled with ancient, timeless wisdom by an alchemist and by a master at the top of his game.
Thank you. I realize too that I think there's a lot of stuff in the book that's very reactionary to the modern world. Because in the novels there's no technology at all, there's no cars, there's no electricity. It's all magic. Everything comes from magic in the story. And another thing too is that in volume 2 there is an integration of some characters from the earth realm, from the historical realm, namely 3 painters. Remedios Varro, who was a painter who worked in Mexico in the 20th century, and her friend Leonora Carrington, who died just recently at the age of about 95, and then the painter William Baziotes, who was a painter in New York. And these 3 people have a little artist colony of their own in the country of Ob, which is the setting of the book. And Zahira and her godmother and godfather go into the forest and they find this artist colony, and the 6 of them come together and they form a rainbow. Each one of them is one of the colors of the rainbow, and they go to Ob then to discover Zahira's dark self. So that is essentially what the novel is about. There's many different influences that were on the book. And also, there are no wars in the book, which I'm very happy about. And really, in a sense, there's no true conflict between people. This is all about inner conflicts in our own inner world, rather than any conflict we have with the outer realm. Anything else you can think to say about it, or?
It's just been a delight, John.
Well, thank you very much for listening to this, and I hope you read the novel, and I hope you enjoy it, and feel free to email me about it too. I'm at jsandbach@kc.rr.com. Thank you.